Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome to Bastions and Basilisks. This video will be on the Ranger, the Unearthed Arcana version, because, you know, the PHB version is worse than horseshit, because at least that has a use. My name is Brandon.
My name is Kalvin.
And I found a comparison that actually works. So I have the PDF here on my phone, so if you watch me stare at my phone, I apologize. I am not that interesting, and I stutter over words very bad. My dyslexia hates me today. So you get a D10 of health. So it's a D10 plus your constitution at first level, and a D10 from then on. Your armor proficiencies are light and medium armor with shields. Your weapons are simple weapons and martial weapons. You do not get any proficient tools or proficiency in any tools. Your saving throws are strength and dexterity. You get to choose 3 of the following skills: animal handling, athletics, insight, investigation, nature, perception, stealth, and survival, which actually all those can be thematically correct, which is really nice. Beginning at first level, you have a thing called Favored Enemy. You have significant experience studying, tracking, hunting, and even talking to a certain type of enemy commonly encountered in the wilds. Choose a type of favored enemy: beasts, fae, humanoids, monstrosities, or undead. You gain a +2 bonus to damage rolls with weapon attacks against creatures of the chosen type. Additionally, you have advantage on survival checks, which are wisdom, to track your favorite enemies, as well as on intelligence checks to recall information about them. When you gain this feature, you learn one language of your choice, typically one spoken by your favorite enemy or creatures associated with it. However, you are free to pick any language you wish to learn. You know, thematically, it would go with the creature that you are hunting. So, like, right. If you decide to do, like, Laura Bailey, when she was doing her Ranger Vexalia, she did Draconic for hers because her favorite enemy was dragons. So it made a lot of sense that she went with that.
Well, I think she was also, that was based on, I think it was originally a Pathfinder, and then they switched it over. So
yeah, if I'm correct, they started the campaign in Pathfinder, and then they switched over
to D&D.
Yeah, because that's why Percy was a gunslinger and did a lot of Pathfinder stuff early on, because they were working on it. They have an ability called Natural Explorer. You're a master of navigating the natural world, and you react with swift and decisive action when attacked. This grants you the following benefits: you ignore difficult terrain, you have advantage on initiative rolls. On your first turn during combat, you have advantage on attack rolls against creatures that have not yet acted. In addition, you are skilled at navigating the wilderness. You gain the following benefits when you're traveling for an hour or more: difficult terrain does not slow your group's travel. Your group cannot become lost except by magical means. Even when you're engaged in another activity while traveling, such as foraging, navigating, or tracking, you remain alert to danger. If you are traveling alone, you can move stealthily at a normal pace. That I did not know was a thing. When you forage, you find twice as much food as you normally would. And lastly, while tracking other creatures, you have to learn their exact number, their size, and how long ago they passed through the area, which was approximately 4 days ago, 36 minutes and 2 seconds. That I almost said 36 hours. That would have added another day.
We also kind of skipped over. We didn't even talk about favorite enemy and how amazing it is now.
Yeah, I didn't have the PHB version.
Yeah, the original version, the Player's Handbook version, is okay, but it is very underwhelming. It's like, cool, you get bonuses to know about these things, but okay,
here's
how
the
is
thing.
that helpful? Like, I can find them.
You get a lot more of enemies with the skill.
It's like, I can find them, guys, but when we get there, the fighter's going to have to do all the fighting because I'm not as good. So, you know, it's one of those things where, especially with some of the spells that they get later on. Like,
so, the PHB version, the favorite enemies that you're allowed to select are aberrations, beasts, celestials, constructs, dragons, elementals, fae, fiends, giants, monstrosities, oozes, plants, or undead. Or you can select 2 humanoid races such as gnolls or orcs as favorite enemies. So you got more of a variety, but honestly, with the more variety, it kind of makes it a lot harder to really be able to choose. Hold on, let
Well,
me go back.
the favorite enemies for the in the player's handbook, they get a better like a improved favorite enemy at 6th level that applies to the kind of more robust ones.
Yeah, but yeah, you don't get extra related stuff other than the wisdom checks.
Yeah, and like natural explorer, you get
And then at level
you have to choose if
6, you get an associated language. At 14, also. Excuse me. Yeah,
well
yeah,
you
you like
choose one
favorite enemy
additional favorite
stuff.
enemy as well as its associated language. So that just means you're better at finding other things. It's like okay, cool.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is
I prefer
which
the
is
Unearthed
very
Arcana.
much for a game that is so focused around combat, having a class that is so designed for exploration just seems weird.
Yeah, like this one is definitely like, oh, you're going to be able to move a lot better. And it's like, yeah, that's useful if we're on a time crunch. And that time crunch is usually given, the DM usually doesn't give you, at least I wouldn't do this. And I've met several DMs who wouldn't. So maybe there is a dick of a DM who would do this. But I don't think there's many DMs who would make you travel what would be a 3-day journey as fast as you can at the second that you get told of what happens. So if you have to make that 3-day journey and you only have 3 days to do it to speak to whoever before the event happens, it's very unlikely that you're able to rest and stuff like that during that. And you have to rush. So it's like, oh, you get news that it's going to take place in 2 days now. So if you have to take the 2 days, the movement's already going to be null and voided because you're literally like ignoring all rests and stuff just to get there. Like this is very, very niche. And unless it's like something that's going to be like very heavily applied during the creation process of the entire campaign, personally, I would just switch over to something else. But I haven't read the like Unearthed Arcana version.
Yeah,
So
you could even just the some of the benefits you get, like um, the Outlander background gives you the ability to you can always like just period can forage for food, no roll needed, and you know like you know exactly where you are, like in a like location. So it's one of those things that like they were given like a background was given just as much usefulness
as the ranger,
as at least one class feature from a ranger. And natural explorer, like period, it's you ignore difficult terrain. That means as long as it doesn't say that it has to be magical for that one. So you ignore difficult terrain, period. So you can climb trees just fine. You can or swimming because swimming is considered difficult terrain. So you have to have so essentially you never have to have your movement. You have advantage on initiative rolls, so you're more likely to go first, and you have advantage against
people
any
tend to
creatures
forget
that have.
that.
So it's like you have advantage on initiative rolls, and you have advantage on attack rolls against creatures that haven't acted. So it's like one of those things. You're like, surprise, bitches! So you're really good.
Multi-class with rogue in that, and you get a lot of fucking sneak attack damage.
And then all of the and then once again, just like Paladin, you have all of these things that are benefits to your party. So like difficult terrain, which people normally ignore anyway. I think when you're moving, but you know if you're playing in a game where they're like, all right, well you're moving through this area or whatever, and it's so you're slowed down by a certain amount. You're like, all right, no, we're not. I'm a ranger.
Yeah.
You can't be lost. You don't. So it's even when engaged in another activity while traveling, such as foraging, navigating, or tracking, you remain alert to danger. That means you do not have disadvantage on perception checks, which means your passive perception is not at a -5 to the normal.
Dude, stack alert on top of that.
Right.
With the ooh.
If you're traveling alone, you can move stealthily, so you could sneak so you can be sneaking at a normal pace.
Because doesn't that half your movement also, or is it?
Have to sneak. You have to be moving in half your movement. Forage, that means that you don't have to worry about food, and then knowing where enemies are, so it's like that's kind of situational, but you're tracking and you see tracks of maybe giants, and you're like, oh, so that's helpful, because you're walking around and you're like, oh well, there was 600 orcs in this area 20 minutes ago. Maybe let's go back.
Yeah, let's not go that direction.
Let's not go that direction. You know, or whatever. I mean, 600's a lot, and you probably notice regardless. But
yeah, even with the minion system where they have 1 HP, that's still a lot of damage that can go against one character. That's like 600 separate rolls, even if you're not doing flanking system.
So they made them more like Aragorn or Aragon. Aragorn. Sorry, not the dragon, the human ranger or the half elf ranger, because technically he's not human. But so like just these two abilities alone have and how they reworded them has made rangers infinitely better than the ones in the player's handbook. Because now you pick a favorite enemy and you're better at fighting them, which means you do extra damage against them because you know where their weak spots are. Cool.
Yeah.
You know that. You know you're not swinging as often as a fighter maybe, but you're doing a bit more damage than you normally would. So, you know what? I'll take it. And then you don't have to pick a specific terrain. So I mean, once again, this is one of those things where if you're being nice to the players, even if you're generous, you don't have to be generous. You don't have to change what your plan was. You're like, oh shit, the ranger has favored location swamps. Shit, I was gonna have stuff take place in the city. Well, I guess it's a city in a swamp now, just so that they can have some benefit. You know, now you're not. The GM isn't pigeonholed. Like, it's just one of those things you're like, oh, I know the wilderness well, so it doesn't matter. Like, you know, are there survivalists who are better in, you know, the Arctic than there are in the desert? Sure. But this is also a fantasy setting. So, who's to say that you're like, all right, you understand that I'm not a ranger, and I understand that if it's a bright-colored animal, it's poisonous. That applies whether you're in the desert or in the jungle. And especially in the Arctic, Jesus. Like, if you see a neon pink animal in the Arctic, you run like a motherfucker. You're like, that thing's not even, I don't even care if it's poisonous. That thing's terrifying. Like, because everything else has evolved in such a way that they can survive in the wilderness. Like, so if it's like a neon pink color, you're like, that's an alien.
This thing is, it's like, that thing's definitely not supposed to be here. That's not good.
So you're good in all environments, which in some scenarios is really useful. Like, I think I watched, like, the animated spellbook, and he talked about Goodberry or whatever, and was talking about how there was a campaign thing where essentially, like, they were on the run. Like they were being chased, and essentially this is just as good at like as Goodberry or as breaking. You know, Goodberry broke it because essentially would have broken it because then they don't have to worry about food because the druid had the Goodberry spell. So type of thing. Same thing with this. Like this would kind of, you're like, all right, well you can move better in the snow or whatever. All right, so that gives you an advantage at least to an extent. Like so it's. But no, it's just these two abilities already. It's like, even though it's technically not official, but
yeah, it's still much better.
It is.
Now, continuing, we have the fighting styles for the ranger, which starting at 2nd level, you can choose one of the fighting styles, which there are archery, defense, dueling, and 2-weapon fighting. You also get spellcasting at 2nd level, which everyone knows how spellcasting works. If I'm correct, these guys are also half-casters?
Correct.
All right, yeah, I was correct on that. Surprising. Which your spell save DC is 8 plus proficiency plus your wisdom modifier, and the spell attack modifier is proficiency plus wisdom. At level 3, you get Primeval Awareness. Beginning at 3rd level, your mastery of Ranger lore allows you to establish a powerful link to beasts and to the land around you. You have an innate ability to communicate with beasts, and they recognize you as kindred spirit. Through sounds and gestures, you can communicate simple ideas to a beast as an action, and can read its basic mood and intent. You learn its emotional state, whether it's affected by magic of any sort, its short-term needs, such as food or safety, and actions you can take, if any, to persuade it not to attack. You cannot use this ability against a creature that you have attacked within the past 10 minutes. Additionally, you can attune your senses to determine if your favorite enemy lurks nearby. By spending 1 uninterrupted minute in concentration as if you're concentrating on a spell. You can sense whether or not your favorite enemy is present within 5 miles of you. This feature reveals which of your favorite enemies are present, their number, and the creature's general direction and distance in miles from you. If there are multiple groups of your favorite enemy within range, you learn this information for each group. It's actually really fucking impressive.
Yeah,
I didn't
that
know that
is
you could do that.
such a good ability. Like, that is
Yeah, like
so good. Because, like, the first part, once again, they're very nature heavy. So it's the first part is it helps you if there are beasts. So if you run into a jaguar or you run into dinosaurs, because those are beasts, like, you could be like, whoa, and you'd be like, I need food. And be like, all right, I'll hook you up, bro. Let's go kill a deer or something. Just don't kill us. Like,
there's a giant T-Rex, and you're like, hey, come on, there's a wandering band of orcs that we need to dispatch of anyways.
Fuck around. Like, that'd be like, hey, jaguar, you could fuck around with us, and you'll find out, or I'll help you find, like, type of thing. So
you accidentally tame, or at least somewhat tame, a jaguar as a animal companion.
right, well, yeah, right. I mean, which actually there are one of the subclasses is Beastmaster. So
Yeah.
but yeah, and then the second part, like that once again, because it doesn't specify that So if you choose undead, it doesn't. Does it say? Reveals which your favorite enemies are present, their numbers, and the creature's general direction and distance. It doesn't tell you which one it is. So if you're undead, so that just means that you're like and you're like, okay, there to the northwest there are 15 undead. About 3.5 miles from here to the north, there's 10 undead. About 4 miles from here, 1 mile to the south, there are 5 undead. Like, it doesn't tell you what kind of undead they are. So
yeah, it just says what their
15
type
skeletons. Is. That could be 15 vampires. Like, but
yeah.
my ranger, my kobold ranger went archery and undead, so I was shooting, and at that point I was able to, because I know how to build a character. I think I had a 20 dexterity. At level 5. So I'm getting a +7 to hit and +7 to damage with my bow. So like, you like, the combat was great, and I love that character, especially because they get the spike growth spell, which is just great. But I never got to use Primeval Awareness, I don't think. But like, that's one of those things that, like, if you're just in an area hunting down, especially if you team up with like a paladin, you're undead hunters, like, you're like, I know where they are, and if you notice, I don't think it gives you how many times you could do it. So you could do it as many times as you want in a day.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty neat ability. Like, you're able to really focus for a minute straight also, which doesn't take much time outside of combat. Like,
Right.
you're able to figure stuff out pretty well, and you can also, like, use this to figure out, hey, like, say, like, you have there's roving band of, like, your favorite enemy or that have been attacking the city. So, like, say it's like in your case undead, it's like, hey, we've been having attacks, we don't know where they're coming from, and then you use this and you generically find out where they are, so you start heading that direction. You can create a couple missions, or at least side quests, or bounties or whatever, based off of this, that you can use your ranger for, and it'd be beneficial because you're not going to be able to always cast, like, the fucking, what is it, detect good and evil, and find out it's an undead, like, I'm pretty sure there's spells like similar to it, but it's like those are very localized to like 60 feet, 120 feet, whatever it is. Like, you're not gonna be able to scan miles at one time with this.
Also, I was just thinking it could also be used if you're on the run from your favorite enemy.
Oh yeah, you'd be able to determine how far they were.
You broke in or whatever. Your group attacked something, and maybe there's like an undead enclave or something, and you killed somebody, and they found out about you or whatever, and you guys were able to escape, and you use this, so like, it kind of almost gives you like a temporary, like, mini map.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
You know exactly
like a radar,
where
like a bing.
you know how far the enemy is, you know how to evade them better, and if there's
right,
any
exactly.
like
So
yeah.
if you know that they're like all of those things, you're like, let's go west, or let's go east. Like.
Yeah, it's like you start heading one direction and you
Because
realize that they're
or
catching
worst
on to
case,
you.
because what I think in the northeast there was 5, or north, the north there was 5 or 10, and you're like, fuck it, let's go north, like, better than hitting the 15, type of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
You
we'll go
take
a
those
couple
down.
miles, I'll do it again, we'll see where they're at, if they got closer, or like that way you're also expecting danger, so you're less likely to be surprised. Plus, if you're in the wilderness, then you're getting your natural explorer ability.
Exactly.
So it's helpful for you guys because you know where the enemies are coming from. So if somebody's chasing you, or even in one of those things where every 5 miles you do it, you travel 3 miles an hour. So every like hour and a half, you spend a minute real quick doing it. And for some reason, this group of 10 undead has been following you this whole time. It's been days or whatever, and you're still like, how do they know where you are? You're like, oh, somebody they must be tracking us somehow.
And it'd be even
Is it
better
magical
if they're
in nature? Is it like it's so it could be 100% used to find and attack and assassinate or whatever you want to say your favorite enemy, but also to escape your favorite enemy.
I'd also find it really interesting is like using your example, like say that you are being followed by your favorite enemy. It'd be also interesting to say that like they've always kept a certain distance away from you. Like it's always been 10 miles or it's always been like a couple miles to this. And it's like, well, why is it that they don't approach us? Why is it they're watching us? And it's like maybe they're expecting you to run into like another group or
Right, and
you're trying to find your hideout.
yeah, that too, or they're maybe they're waiting for the opportune time where you run into another group and then you're tired and then they strike, and so
Yeah.
it has a lot of it's situational, but it has a lot. It can be very useful. Once again, in a campaign, in like an undead hunting campaign, a paladin ranger who hates a paladin and a ranger who hates undead, like golden. Or I mean, if or a ranger and a blood hunter, against like Fae, or
it would work pretty well.
So it's
whatever their favorite enemy, you can create a campaign and include stuff like this.
Exactly.
Because I actually have a ranger in my game, and the funny thing is that he has not told me what his favorite enemy is or anything. So I haven't even thought about that. So talking about this actually gives me really good ideas of what they can do, because like I didn't know half of this stuff because he uses his other abilities more. So it's like now thinking about this, I can like set aside time when I'm in Washington to talk to him and be like, hey, look, dude, like let's talk about your ranger class. Like let's try to implement this more. Like there's so much stuff that we could be doing right now that I didn't realize that they could do. Like they were traveling for almost an hour. It was like 45 minutes, and had they like just incidentally skirted their way, because had they ended up using a goblin to their advantage to find out a local hideout. They convinced this goblin to go to where their contact was, which was a hobgoblin. And note, this hobgoblin was the only good, not hobgoblin, it was a bugbear, my bad. This bugbear was the only good bugbear on the island, because it was part of the main quest line. And they're surrounded by other goblins, hobgoblins, and 2 bugbears. And they were discussing very quietly to this goblin, like, why did you fucking lead us into an ambush? And it's like, you told this goblin to get from point A to point B. You didn't ask him if there's enemies in between that point A to point B. Like, you could have possibly searched the area around them, because there's patrols and such that have been going on, and no one's been asking to look for patrols. And I'm now like thinking how well I could implement the ranger's abilities because this is also in a forest area, how they could go about doing sneaking and stuff like that effectively, and not destroy the art of surprise and such.
Right.
I really do enjoy this, because like if I'm correct, orcs and goblinoids technically are a possibility in the PHB version. I wouldn't be upset if that was on there also. Anyways, because we keep
they're humanoids, so they would fall under, because you can choose beasts, fae, humanoids, monstrosities, or undead. So they're humanoids.
Mm-hmm.
So they've
the Ranger Conclave, they're basically the Ranger archetypes or subclasses at 3rd level. Uh, there's so fucking many of them now. At 4th level, you get ability score improvements, which you also get them at 8th, 12th, 16th, and 19th level. At 6th level, you get greater favored enemy. You are ready to hunt even deadlier game. Choose a type of greater favored enemy: aberrations, celestials, constructs, dragons, elementals, fiends, or giants. You gain all the benefits against this chosen enemy that you normally gain against your favorite enemy, included in additional language. Your bonus to damage against all favorite enemies increases to +4. Additionally, you have advantage on saving throws against the spells and abilities used by a greater favorite enemy. That's actually really impressive. I didn't. So it does state used by a greater favorite enemy. So say it's like an undead, which is not a greater favorite enemy. You kind of shit out of luck if a vampire tries to charm you, but you know.
Yeah, but I think
like higher level of the basic ones would be able to be considered greater, because like, I'm sorry, if you're going against, go ahead.
The funny thing about vampires is they're not that powerful.
I was thinking Strahd, like
even he's not that powerful.
I haven't played many high level campaigns, so, I mean, like up past level 5.
He is in the context of that adventure, but you
even then, because at level 10 you could finish him off.
Like level 10, like you could, if you have like, once again, it's one of those things that you have a character that's just built different.
I was just
accidentally built, like, because most of it is like I've explained. I did Dwarger Barbarian, who was Path of the Zealot, and like I chose Radiant, so like I have advantage on Charmed. I have advantage on saving throws versus being Charmed. And I damage reduction, which means his bites are not doing as much damage while I'm raging, and I do radiant damage, and I have advantage. So he doesn't have a high armor class, so I'm gonna hit him every round, and deal radiant damage, which means he's not healing every round.
He's getting hurt very hard.
Like, and yeah, he's gonna get hit hard and not be able to heal, which is very pivotal to how vampires work. Like they have to be able to charm you, they have to be able to bite you, or they have to be able to heal. Like, if you can't heal, then and it's like 20 hit points around that you're not getting back, and they only have like 100, 110, 120 hit points. Like, I'm fucking Strahd up in a short period of time, and that's at lower levels. Like at level 10, like I got some of my class features. Like, even if I die against him, they could just go and res, like, for free. Like, so it's I don't know. Vampires have the mystique, and the thing with vampires is that they're intelligent undead, and that just makes them challenging. But in a straight up fight, vampires ain't shit.
Vampires suck. Sorry, I just thought of that fucking movie.
Okay, no, we're done. I'm stopping recording.
We got to redo this entire fucking thing.
No, I'm doing it without you. I'm doing a whole rating without you. Fuck you for that. No.
At level 8, you get Fleet of Foot. You can use a dash action as a bonus action on your turn. That feels like a very big give me. Like, they just wanted to include something. So,
yes and no. If for classes that they get some stuff as bonus actions, like their Hunter's Mark is an incredible spell.
I would say, like,
but being able to dash means that, like, think about how much rogues use that.
Yeah, rogues do use it a lot. I would probably give them at least additional movement within their favorite terrain also on top of it. Something a little bit more.
Well, I would say the ability to ignore difficult terrain is good enough. Because you don't understand, like, if it doesn't come up a lot in a game, then you don't appreciate it. But it's one of those things that, like, you don't appreciate how useful that is until your group just gets to swim 30 feet every round, because you have, like, so it's one of those things that you're moving at normal speed all the time, regardless of where you are.
Yeah, that's true. Because again, I've only played a ranger once, and that was my very first technical character ever when I was first getting into D&D in high school. And I never had a actual sheet. It was, hey, this is what you do and you can do it. And it was very like improv. So I never really got to enjoy it. I've never made a Ranger since. So like my real only ability to judge off of Ranger is what people have told me and what my now PC is going through in the game as a Ranger. So
I mean, I'm not arguing that. I think it would be cool to give them that, like give them the dash action, and maybe when they use a dash action, they can move an additional 10 feet that round or something. Like, give them a little bit more. But I mean, being able to dash is a bonus action. I mean, that allows you to move another 30, 40 feet depending on what your base movement is. Like, movement is, it's one of
if you're Tabaxi with mobile, you got what? That's a +10.
You don't appreciate how powerful movement is.
Yeah, movement's very important. Like if you can like disengage and get the fuck out of there without getting hurt, or just even taking the dash just to get out of there.
Yeah, because you can use your standard action to disengage, and then your
dash.
Bonus action to dash and use a movement. So now you've moved 60, 70, 80 feet, depending on whatever your movement is, away from combat. And most things, like so you could just keep doing that. Essentially, you could just and especially if you once again. You just jump into the water and start swimming away, like everybody else is going to be like, God damn it, with the half movement bullshit. Like,
the orcs decided to get a paddle boat, but because they're orcs, it's not exactly the most beautiful condition for ergonomics. So they're paddling, and then they're not all in unison, so they're starting to like tilt.
Just going in a circle.
Yeah, they start like they're not thinking very bright because they're battle hungry, so they're just all going in a circle, and they just off into they're off in a weird direction now. At 10th level, you get an ability called Hide in Plain Sight. You can okay, I had to reread that. You can remain perfectly still for long periods of time to set up ambushes. When you attempt to hide on your turn, you can opt to not move on that turn. If you avoid moving, creatures that attempt to detect you take a -10 penalty to their wisdom, perception specifically, checks until the start of your next turn. You lose this benefit if you move or fall prone, either voluntarily or because of some external effect. You are still automatically detected if any effect or action causes you to no longer be hidden. If you are still hidden on your next turn, you can continue to remain motionless and gain this benefit until you are detected. I can see that being really useful until Blind Sense, Tremor Sense. Oh, Tremor Sense, you have to remain still, so you're fine with Tremor Sense. Blind Sense would fuck you.
True Sight is ridiculously powerful regardless. So
yeah, you can see through anything.
But no. See, the thing is that just means that you're not obscuring yourself.
No,
you're trying to pull a Drax.
If you remain very still, he will not see you. Honestly, that's exactly what it is. I can see this being useful to like things who are not very wisdom heavy. So like, like undead who are just shambling about, you just kind of decided to remain very still, and
I'm sorry, a -10 to. I mean, it's weird that they picked a number but a -10 penalty to their wisdom checks, like especially because you probably have a good stealth. So that's one of those things, like, you run behind a tree and you just stop moving.
Everyone's going to look at the tree and you're just standing there like... And
then they just they're like, shit, where'd he go? And everybody like runs by you. Like, it's one of those things where like, you like, like you just like go and you like put it like a trash can over your head or something.
The Skyrim thing where
people just run by you because they don't see you anymore. Like, it's dumb, but it's stupid. It's only dumb if it doesn't work. Like,
Hide in plain sight. I'm a lampshade now.
Right. Hide in plain sight. I'm a lamp.
They plug in the lamp and you actually start like glowing. You cast.
It's too dark in here. Turn on the light. Oh, shit.
Cast light on face.
It's like they're like click click. Click click, like, or something, like, it could be comedic, but it could be useful too. Once again,
yeah, like we're making light of it, but this actually could be pretty damn useful.
Especially because you're like, using it in like an Assassin's Creed way, where you're just like, oh shit, and you just hop in a bush, and then they walk by, and you're just like, surprise, bitches! Like, especially because how much you fucking love Gestalt. Being a rogue ranger, Gestalt, disgusting.
Yeah, it would.
Broken.
At
Especially go
14th level,
assassin.
Assassin's pretty fucking beefy class. I mean, subtype.
The Underdark one. They changed. Which they changed in this as well. Deep Stalker.
Deep Stalker or Gloom? No, Gloomstalker. Something else.
It was Gloomstalker. They changed it to. They changed the name to Deep Stalker for this. In this PDF.
Yeah, that doesn't sound creepy at all. They stalk it deep. They have deep speech now.
Deep Stalker. Yeah.
You see these trenches, boy? I stalk them.
And
then there's just nothing but canned goods. Like he's just stalking them for some fucking reason. It's his job now. At 14th level, you get the Vanish ability. You can use the hide action as a bonus action on your turn. Also, you can't be tracked by non-magical means unless you choose to leave a trail. Okay. They're kind of getting to rogue territory later on in levels because obviously hide as a bonus action, but you can't be tracked unless you choose to leave a trail. That's where it actually becomes really fucking useful because you're no longer leaving a track as a ranger. You're basically, what is it, Legolas from fucking Lord of the Rings?
You can walk through the snow without leaving tracks.
That's really impressive.
Or the muck, or the mud, or like.
And that's if you choose to, which I don't think you're gonna want to in the first place. But there's a possibility, like, how the fuck are we gonna like track our ranger who disappeared? And it's like, oh, I'm assuming that eventually your party would understand that you can choose to leave tracks, so they'd eventually be able to pick up on that. Like, oh, he went this direction, and now we're starting to see him like poke a hole into the ground every X amount of like feet. So you're going that direction or some shit.
But I mean, think about it this way: if you know that somebody's tracking you, you can lead them in a direction and then stop.
You're off.
And then you could stop leaving. You could be like, "All right, I'm going to stop leaving tracks now," and then you could essentially circle back behind them.
Yeah, like say like it looks like you're going to go into
or use hide in plain sight. Like you stop leaving tracks, you walk like another like 10, 20 feet, and then you hide behind something. And you're like, whoop.
It could work. You defeat the enemy, and then you hear the Final Fantasy victory theme song. Yeah, it could be very useful. Like you can definitely take a couple of these class features and stick them together. At 18th level, you get Feral Senses. You gain preternatural senses that help you fight creatures you can't see. When you attack a creature you can't see, your inability to see does not impose disadvantage on your attack rolls against it. You're also aware of the location of any invisible creature within 30 feet of you, provided that the creature isn't hidden from you, and you aren't blinded or deafened. That kind of makes the blinded and deafened makes sense, but the hidden, because invisibility is kind of like innately being hidden.
Yeah, but you all that happens is they get an advantage on stealth checks against you. So
yeah, it's just a little weird. This could be pretty useful because like it's a weaker version of honestly blind sense or tremor sense, how you want to put it, because tremor sense you rely on the ground shaking, which you don't. It's a weaker version of that type of stuff anyways, is what I'm getting at. At 20th level you get Foe Slayer. You become an unparalleled hunter. Once on each of your turns, you can add your wisdom modifier to an attack roll or damage roll of an attack you make. You can choose to use this feature before or after the roll, but before any effects of the roll are applied. I'm not gonna lie, why would you choose it before? Like, because if you miss, you miss. You're not gonna be able to use it again.
Mm-hmm. I know.
And afterwards, it's useful.
Once again, I mean, we haven't brought it up, but this is UA and it isn't official, so it's not like they play tested it a whole fuck ton. But like, why not just give them the bonus damage? Just fuck it. Not even once a turn. Just give it to them. Because I don't even think they get the. I mean, some of the classes get the attack action thing where they can attack twice in a round. Like, why not just give it to them? Like, you get your wisdom. You could like. That's how I would run. Is that you get your wisdom. Like, fuck the once on each of your turns. Like, you can add your wisdom modifier to attack rolls. Oh, it's attack to the attack roll or damage roll of an attack you make.
You know what I just realized?
Oh.
There's no second attack.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is they don't get a second attack.
Yeah, I just realized, like, I heard you, but I guess like I had to like check it myself. Like, I just realized that. Damn.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would
like
give it to. I would give them that. I would say probably just the bonus 2 damage. I'm like you can just
yeah.
take like you choose, but you can only get one. Like, but it applies to all of your attacks for the round. So if you have like dual weapon, like the 2 weapon fightings, you're like stab stab, and then you can get a bonus to attack or bonus to damage. Like I would give them the choice, but I would allow them to just have it. You don't have to choose. It's not a once per turn thing, because I mean you could still be hasted, or whatever. But yeah,
It's a pretty good thing. Oh, my knee.
so
But
this
yeah,
it's very
sorry.
it's very focused as far as once again. I mean Rangers have always been very focused, but it's way better. Like it makes it takes it from a like a 1 that the players maybe a 2 that the player's handbook 1 is to this is probably like a 4 or 5. Like and it could be better depending on the situation. Like there are situations where a ranger could be nasty. You know, just straight up fucking murdering things, disappearing into the shadows or into the fucking bog, and then coming back out like Rambo or, you know, whatever. It could be disgusting. And I mean, obviously, this isn't like I said, this isn't official, but
It has the ability to a degree, be slightly game breaking if you know what you're doing, but it's every class has that ability really, but you can definitely play with this and it be very useful comparatively to the PHB's version where it was a lot more limited.
So there are 3 pillars. There are the 3 pillars of D&D. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. There's combat, exploration, and I think social. And if you think about it, this version improves their combat abilities. It improves their exploration abilities. And the fact that they can talk to beasts or communicate with beasts, I don't know if they could do that with the other one, but that improves. It's social to an extent. Like it's not. They're not better at talking to humans, but once again, you're in the jungle. You're like, hey, buddy, I'll give you this fucking nice steak if you tell me where the monster is. And they're like, oh shit, that douchebag? Yeah, no, he's like 4 miles from here. You're like, thanks, buddy. Like, you know,
Turns out you're talking to a whole ass fucking squirrel, and the squirrel's like, yeah, he kind of hunted my family. I'm like, please kill him.
Right. Or something. Well, like, there, and it's one of those things, especially considering how we're like, all right, I befriended this tribe of squirrels, and now because like you killed a jaguar that's been hunting them, or although I don't know how squirrels and jaguars exist in the same area. Anyway, but it's one of those things that now you have an army of squirrels that are your allies.
Show up.
So it's like that meme where it's like you swerve to avoid that squirrel and it shows up to repay you in your time of need. It's the squirrel in the full plate armor with the sword and the shield. Like yeah, like it'd be like that. Like, and you think that's dumb, but like
it could happen. It could happen.
It could. You're like that's ridiculous. But then just 100,000 squirrels show up in your time of need or whatever. Like, you're defending a kingdom from an undead army or whatever, and you're like, that's
1,000 Ratatas come up.
Right, Ratatas. Yeah, like, you're just like, or no, that would be one of those things where they just form Ratatas, and it's just, they become the swarm becomes Ratatas, like this giant, so like, it's a giant squirrel, essentially, like, but like, giant sized. So it's a like 15, 20 foot tall squirrel swarm that fights, and you're like, okay, well,
its weapons and armor are made of also squirrels. Like the sword is actually just 1,000
squirrels, like with their teeth out. Like, yeah, like you're like, that's ridiculous. Like, and then it just wades into combat. And it's like, brrr. But like, you're like, all right, fuck it. Like, it's
all because of the ranger.
It's or you befriended I don't know what a group of wolves or a pod of dolphins, or like, well, fuck dolphins. Also fuck orcas.
They're gonna try and fuck you.
But like, but I mean, it's one of those things that like, you don't appreciate stuff until you have access to it, and then you're like, oh, you know,
a good DM, even not even necessarily a good DM, a decent DM will be able to incorporate something decent for your character class, even if it's not necessarily the most grand thing. You're gonna at least be able to have fun with your class, and that's something that I try to strive for.
Right, and so there's definitely features in here that are great for combat, great for exploration. There's nothing, there's no class better at exploration, the exploration pillar, than Rangers, and but yeah, having being able to do stuff with animals and communicate, and I mean, there's some races that can do it, but this is a class feature, so you can be any race and do it, or it justifies your ability to do it if you decide to be a Furbolg or a Triton, you know.
Then that pod of dolphins really about to be a squad of dolphins.
I mean, it'd be like, would be like Narnia, like at that big battle when they have like the fucking army of badgers. Or can you imagine if you befriend a honey badger, and then that honey badger tells the story to other honey badgers, and then in your time, like, squirrels are funny, ha ha ha, squirrels, but then an army of honey badgers shows up in your time of need. Like,
honey badgers are the real life version of go fuck yourself.
They're bulletproof or bullet resistant. Like, they don't give a like. Can you imagine? Like, that's one of those things that, like, you're outnumbered, and you're like, well, I guess today we die. And then it's like the Riders of Rohan show up, but it's fucking honey badgers, and you're like, even the orcs should be like, oh well, fuck. Because, I mean, lions are scared of honey badgers. Yeah. Like, it's like, okay, they fucked it up in the movies, but it reminds me of the Hulk in the comics versus Thanos. Like, Thanos, he is not... The Hulk is one of the few people... Like, he's not necessarily scared of the Hulk, but the Hulk is one of the few people that he willingly does not get into a fight with, if he can help it.
He will try to avoid a situation dealing with the Hulk.
Because it's one of those things that, like, he's punched me, and it hurts. I don't want to get punched by him again. Even
with the stones, he's just like, let's not.
Right, exactly. So it's... Yeah, it's... If you want to use all of the class features, it's... Rangers can be great. Like this, like I said, this makes them like a solid 4 or 5 if they're this just in itself with the bonus damage against their favorite enemies. Like, if you're not throwing their favorite enemies at them, then you're kind of a dickhead. Like, even if it's just like a bone on occasion. Like, I mean, they're not a solid. They're not like middle of the road solid like a paladin is. But
you should still
if you're playing in like an exploration game, like, was it Pathfinder Kingmaker or whatever, like, all takes place in like this wilderness area that you walk around, like, it's fucking great. Like, they're a great class to have in a party. Like, once again, like a paladin in, against undead, or just in general, are just good to have. Like, a ranger, you're like, we appreciate you and everything you bring to the table, with the specifically the Unearthed Arcana version, but like,
HB can sit down a little bit.
Yeah, you can fuck off. Like, that's like, if you read the first thing of that, like, it's like, people have bitched, and we tried to do something. Like, it's just like, people have complained about the Ranger for a while now, and we just decided we tried to do something about that, so we're sorry.
Yeah.
Like, but no, I don't hate Rangers. It's just, much like Paladins, I just don't, like, I played a Ranger, and it was fun. And it was more about playing a kobold, who hated undead, than it was about playing a ranger. But I mean, it's, if you're going out into the wilderness, like, if it's going to be a wilderness game, then a ranger is an incredible asset to the party. Especially an Unearthed Arcana one, like, hands down, bar none. Fantastic. Like, we'll probably irritate the GM just because be like, all right, well, we're walking in no hindering terrain, so fuck you in your face. We can also be stealthing while we're traveling at normal speed, so you can eat a bag of dicks. Like, oh, combat, I get a bonus to my initiative, roll twice. Okay. Also, I have advantage on these guys. Pew, pew, pew. All right. And I murdered that undead guy, so fuck you. Except I do this with a, hi! Well, I just fucked up your whole day! Like, type of thing, so...
Jesus.
Yeah. I'm the worst person.
I wouldn't say the worst.
I could be worse. I could be better. I'm Spoon, the zombie slayer. I fucked up that mummy though. We got into a fight with the mummy at the end of that adventure, and I wrecked its house.
Its sarcophagus?
Shut up. It's not its house. That's its final resting place, you dick.
So it's pyramid.
Yeah, we were inside the pyramid. I just peed on the floor and everything. It was such a douche.
Road dragons here.
But yeah, that's the ranger.
Yeah, because we're getting sidetracked.
Yeah.
Anyways,
you're the one in charge of this video.
I mean, we were sidetracked like a lot last video. Anyways, that was the Unearthed Arcana Ranger with a little bit of understanding of the PHB version. We've already said our kind of piece on how we feel about it, and probably have put down the PHB Ranger a little bit more than, or a little bit less than we probably should. Yeah, he's describing it very well. Anyways, that is your Ranger. Again, this has been Bastions of Basilisks. My name is Brandon.
I'm Kalvin.
And we'll see you guys in the next video, whenever that will be filmed.
Bye. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And now you get to listen to the outro song. And that's the outro song. Yeah.